Okay, so this is a very short video. I'm using Screencastomatic. I've made some slides in Google Drive and I'm recording in full screen, and I have the slides displaying in full screen. And in the bottom right hand corner you'll see a tiny picture of me, and it looks like I've got a fancy vignette effect. That's courtesy of my son, who knocked over the computer the other week. So the webcam's a bit obscured. So I'm going to go through 6 slides. It's a very quick sort of demonstration of the sort of thing that you might do for your video. I've called it my teaching and technology journey. And if we can get to the next slide. So I actually began teaching in this building over here. This is a place called Granollers, which is near Barcelona. And in 1990 there was a school called the Cambridge School in this building here on the left, and I taught in there for 3 years. And one summer I actually had the pleasure of renovating this floor here, the first floor, with a bunch of Spanish builders, which was great fun. It was here really that I sort of learnt a lot about teaching. It was a school that had very high standards. Peer observation was routine. Discussions about teaching were weekly, and they really encouraged you to go on training, do CPD, and become proud of your teaching. So I stayed here for 3 years, and then unfortunately I got terribly homesick and returned to Sheffield, where I'd been living prior to going to Spain. In fact, I'm not from Sheffield, I'm from Oldham, but I've spent much longer in South Yorkshire than I ever did in Lancashire. So I came back to Sheffield. I spent a year studying Spanish up to the Institute of Linguistic Diploma, which is equivalent to a degree, or so they say, which would allow me to teach Spanish in further education. While I was studying for that, I was teaching English at Sheffield College and Thomas Rotherham College. So this, I think we're now up to 1994. I went to Huddersfield, where I did a PGCE in further education. This is Huddersfield Station at night. That's Harold Wilson, who a long time ago was a Prime Minister. So I spent a year thinking about teaching, reflecting until it was coming out of my ears. And during that year I taught at Sheffield Hallam. I taught Spanish there, which was fun. So after that I was a qualified Spanish teacher to teach in FE. I also taught sociology, and I was already teaching English. So I was a pretty busy teacher, and in the summer I taught Italian teenagers for a company called Anglo-European Study Tours, and sometimes at the weekends I gave teacher training courses for a company called Intensive TEFL Courses. So I was doing a lot of teaching in the 90s. Round about the turn of the century, even though I was doing loads and loads of teaching, I didn't have a full-time contract, and the way that further education was going, it was clear that that was unlikely to happen at the time, especially as I was a language teacher. Languages seem to have a lot of people working part-time. So I decided I was going to switch careers and become an IT specialist. So I did a master's in computing, actually a Master of Science. I did a Master's in Computing at Sheffield Hallam, and as part of my dissertation, I studied the relative efficacy of different communication tools for collaboration, for educational collaboration, based on discourse analysis of different groups of learners at Sheffield Hallam. which was a lot of fun, but probably not the best way to get a job in computing. And by this time, I'd kind of realised I wanted to stay in education in any case. So yeah, 2004 I got my first job as a learning technologist, although for reasons that I never really understood, the actual job title was web technician, working for Professor David McConnell on somewhere in here it says the Global Masters in E-Learning. And so I worked on that with him for a year and then continued to work on the course after he left, and worked on a lot of interesting projects in the School of Education, including the Virtual Graduate School, where we worked very hard on using video, looking at the stuff by Mayer. This is sort of interesting to think about. We had a lot of content for postgraduate researchers, which we assembled into themes, and what we wanted was some way of making those themes accessible, and what we hit on was the stories of individual researchers who would talk about the way those themes related to their own research and their own careers. Some of them were very new researchers, others were people who had decades of research experience behind them. And we developed quite a sophisticated way of using videos within the content. And the Virtual Graduate School was very successful and is still on the university website, and is still widely used, although it's changed dramatically from what it was when I was working on it. Okay, so after my time in School of Education, I spent a year in the library academic development team working on information literacy resources, and then started working in the School of Dentistry on online master's programs. The idea was that we develop a suite of these. In fact, we've only developed one, and a lot of the work that I'm doing now is with face-to-face students. But I've done a lot of interesting work on this course, the Discover Dentistry course, led by Dr. Chris Stokes, which is a MOOC, a massive open online course, which in terms of numbers hasn't been massive, but in terms of its impact on people who are interested in taking up dentistry as a career, we think it's been very significant.